Welcome, and thank you for joining us today for electronic security and door hardware. It's a Sage type of TED Talk, but with our spin on it, it's a tech talk. Bam! Tech Talk is a collaboration between Sage and Tazergy. It's the senior living technology version of what you have perhaps seen as TED Talks. Let's have a few introductions. Matt, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, Matt Haywood, founder CEO of Tazergy.
And Charlie, our special guest.
What?
Thanks, Jill. So Charlie Jennings, Chief Development Officer for Harbor Retirement Associates. HRA is a Florida-based senior living developer and operator. We currently operate 39 senior living communities throughout the two Eastern time zones.
Wonderful. Thank you. My name is Jill Schroeder. I'm the current Sage president, and I'm happy to be hosting this on behalf of Sage and Tazergy. I'm out of St. Paul, Minnesota, and I volunteer my time with Sage as a commitment to bring all of you relevant content to help better our design for aging community. For those of you not familiar with Sage, we're the Society for the Advancement of Gerontological Environments, a membership-based organization representing and promoting collaboration between all disciplines in the senior living industry. Careful planning of educational content presented by Matt Haywood, CEO of Tazergy, and a member of Sage, hopefully gives you insight, nice glasses, Matt, insight into a
Thank you.
topic, and with any luck, maybe you learn something new. So these tech talks, see, I slipped right there. These tech talks are free to you and happen every month. If you like what you see and hear today and are not a member, please consider visiting our website, sagefederation.org, for information on Sage membership. Matt, you live in the world of tech and support system design, and you implement and consult on this challenging field. We hopefully can benefit from your advice in this topic of electronic security and door hardware. You have an
Well,
idea of
I,
what we're going to review?
I do know that whenever we bring up door hardware coordination meetings, that usually brings a big yawn or a big dread from many people.
Yes.
Usually for me, it's exhilarating and fun because I don't know why, but I do. And our team does find enjoyment on taking the team through the process, honestly. So I think the biggest thing, just one of the common threads that we've been reiterating through the course of these tech talks is helping empower you guys in the audience and realize that tech isn't something that you need to be afraid of, and you are equipped to step through this with some of the basic fundamentals that you use in your daily job. So collaboration here, I would say, is critical, right? And it's not one-on-one collaboration, right? So I think as an architect, sometimes there's a feeling like you need to keep the communication streamlined. So you're just
Mhm.
going to have a conversation with an operator. Hey, just get the what do we need? And then I'll go have a meeting with, say, my door hardware consultant. Or, you might have a conversation with a developer. It's like, hey, what do we want to have happen? Okay, then you go get the marching orders.
Right.
Um, there are so many variables that play into door hardware coordination from a design standpoint.
Yeah.
We find it's just so much better to take a more joint collaborative approach, involve the door hardware consultant if
Yeah.
you have one, right? The operator, the
Yeah.
operator who understands the operational intent. Like this is the person, Charlie, for you at Harbor, I'm sure you've got that operator, the person that just knows the flow of your building and your care in your neighborhoods.
Yep.
That's critical, right? Um, and then maybe from a development standpoint, certainly somebody can play a role there just from a dollars and cents observation. Obviously, you need the architect. Um, and then you need your low voltage. You need somebody who understands the technology component to bring those together, put them into the set of documents so that can be issued.
Right. Charlie, Let's ask you, as the special guest today, what has been your biggest struggle as an operator? Speaking from what Matt was just describing, what has been your biggest struggle in the topic of door hardware? Do you have any heartaches that you want to
Oh, I do.
address?
I do. I do. I have a lot of heartaches about this topic. Yeah, both from a development and an operational perspective, because for lack of better description, I serve both roles in terms of developing the product for our operations team. So I have to make sure that I'm doing everything on the front end that makes sense when I hand the keys off to our operations team, so it operates consistently with our policies and procedures and staffing and all those
Yep.
things. And we have been very active on the development front in the last real 10 years. We've opened almost 30 new communities in 10 different states. So we've had to adapt to a number of different code environments and interpretations of code environments across the country, at least the two Eastern time zones. And I don't think it's an overstatement to say for us that the safety and security of our residents is our highest priority and our biggest concern. We can do a lot of things right, we can do a lot of things wrong, but you can't do that wrong. If someone gets hurt, someone gets out of a secured, protected memory care environment, for example, and isn't recovered safely, that is a tragedy, and it's a loss for everybody concerned, not just the family, but everybody who had the responsibility to care for that resident. So it is the thing literally that keeps us up at night. And I can assure you, when we have an elopement of a resident, it is all hands on deck, because we understand the urgency of that. So, recognizing that from a design perspective, we have tried to be very deliberate on how we handle electronic access control, so that it's efficient in terms of moving our staff through the building as they need to, provides the highest level of protection and safety for our memory care residents, but also meets the expectations of the local AHJs who, quite frankly, vary from one to the other. And so I've tried to be very deliberate to the point of bringing in a third-party consultant just to focus on our low voltage systems and our technology and access control, so that we were trying to do even though our buildings may look different, they may be configured differently, the approach should be the same. You should be using this kind of, magnetic lock here, and you should be using a fob reader or a keypad here, really trying to be very intentional. And, we probably covered, 75–80% of it through that, through being standardized and very deliberate. But then you introduce people, right? You introduce a different low voltage vendor, an electrical contractor, a different general contractor, a different architect, and the opportunity for things to get missed, or things to get wrong, or things to not get coordinated correctly is that 20% that really drives me nuts, because it's just a whole lot of people with their hands in the cookie jar. And it's just a big opportunity for things to go wrong. And even in our existing buildings, I'm having to debug issues all the time. Because and we have made the decision as an operator to not rely on physical devices like
Wearables.
WonderGuard.
Yeah, okay.
Nothing against WonderGuard, wonderful product. We just don't like relying on a physical device performing the way it's supposed to perform, a resident not tampering with it or something like that. So we rely on our magnetic locks and our security hardware to really protect our residents. And so when it fails, it's a big concern. And even in the best of projects where I thought I had everybody, I had the A team, right? It's just a nightmare. Even when you think you get a lot right, you still wind up with things wrong. And in often cases, you don't know that you have anything wrong till the building's full, or you've got a lot of residents in there that are now at risk.
Holly, you definitely shared a lot of the landscape. We can feel the challenge and the frustration that's there, and you're not alone.
Yeah.
We hear that, we see that across the board in the industry. And like you mentioned, you hired somebody more intentional on your side to try and help wrangle this.
Yep.
So I think there's a few things on the landscape that add to the complexity or the challenge, right? One is I've been in the industry a little while. Right? I started off at a local regional Eden Care, and
Sure.
then to Sunrise, right? And those were yes. The goal is always your prototype, right? And then you realize, oh, our prototype, we have 30 of them, and then you get a site that is built on the side of a cliff, and all of a sudden you've got to morph it, right? You've got to stretch it, you've got to bend it, you've got underground parking, you need to move memory care from where you normally have it on the ground floor up, or whatever the case may be. Those end up adding in challenges to your operational standard, right? Like, we get that you have an operational standard. It's applying that in the particular project that we're working on to make sure that the people that are going to execute on it understand the operational intent. They understand what you're trying to achieve,
Yeah.
not just installing a widget on a partition and running a wire to it, right?
Yeah. I didn't know you were formerly with Eden Care. We operate 5 former Eden Care buildings, so I'm going to start
Yes,
calling you every time.
you definitely do. Yes. Tallahassee, Jacksonville,
Yeah.
Gainesville. Yep.
So,
Huntsville and Rock Hill, South Carolina.
Huntsville.
Yep.
oh
Oh, I
my,
didn't realize you got Rock Hill
Yeah.
and Huntsville. Yep.
Yeah.
I'm familiar with all of those for sure.
small world, right?
Yep.
Matt, do you have advice on what Charlie has been talking about of the confusion and so many people involved? I mean, is there advice on when to start planning for good hardware coordination, reduction of errors? I mean,
Yeah.
what's
So since one of the lines of business we do is it's design consulting, low voltage
sure?
documentation, right?
Yep.
It is it, we field that question. Hey, we need your door hardware schedule. We say, hold on, we're not going to produce a second parallel door hardware schedule to conflict with the Division 8, right?
Mm-hmm.
Division 8 is where door hardware lives.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to start with the architectural door hardware and say, hey, wherever it says by others, well, those are the things that Charlie gets ticked off about and ends up biting him. It's like, why should it say by others? Yeah, no, it's not me, it's you. And we need to bring clarity into those parts and pieces. So everybody in the design phase, I think this is what I want to encourage people. Lean in, invest the time on the front end, because that will get your set of documents clarified
Mm-hmm.
much better upfront, right? As opposed to waiting to do field engineering and saying, hey, we're out there. I think the other piece is from a build standpoint. Good contractors, if they lead the coordination effort, it's going to be fine. But
Yeah.
what I find more often than not is the contractors are just calling, hey, yeah, I need your stuff out here. Are the doors hung? Yep, they're hung. Come on out. I just need your locks in.
Yeah.
And they get out there and like the door gaskets aren't in, or the doors aren't hung,
Sure.
or it's just not ready. So I think there's two different sides. One is the piece that we can control on the design side is let's get the documents as cohesive as possible. Let's make
Right.
sure that there's as much clarity in them as possible. And I think the other side is on the build side is is helping lead the GC through that process and making them aware, like a low voltage kickoff meeting and regular meetings, that we're raising awareness of
Sure.
this field coordination and collaboration that is required, and make sure that the GC understands. Don't don't just call it's not just a sub you call out and say, hey, we're ready to install.
Okay.
Because there isn't a time in the construction when you can just show up, install your electronic locks, and leave and say you're done.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just not possible.
In the planning stages and early in design, if Charlie is saying his biggest headache from his perspective as developer and operator is elopement risks,
Yeah.
should we be putting a priority on those exiting and entrance areas of the potential for elopement and holding them to for example, a dollar figure for a placeholder to address those, regardless of whether we know the door yet, because many times we
So
can't do the hardware until the door, and it's like, ugh. I mean,
there's the budgetary side, right? So
yeah,
if I have my consulting hat on, I'm going to say to Charlie, like, hey, we can give you a budget number for the door on
okay,
roughly what you should hold for
yeah,
what it should cost to buy out. But now we need to go on to the engineering side. Like, how do we
yeah,
make sure that what is in there has a couple checks and balances there? Like Charlie, you laid out a perfect scenario. You're like, look, the core component, the most important thing is safety and security of the residents. We
yeah,
can't afford elopements, right? We're not we're not trying to keep people out, although that's one result of door
Sure.
security, right? Yeah, but that's not our primary focus, right? Our primary focus is the safety and security is keeping them in. So that means that when the door is unsecure, we need to know about it. Well,
Yeah.
unsecure is a different meaning than open, right? Like unsecure means that somebody can go through it without your awareness.
yeah,
That might be, and I think that's the piece to the operational intent, is making sure that more than Charlie and his ops team understands what they're looking for from that door slab, from that system and environment,
Yeah.
you know.
Not to get take us too far down a tangent, but the other piece of this, that and maybe this is something Sage could get more involved in, is
yeah,
advocating for our industry when it comes to the code officials and the still glaring, you know, differences and difficulties between, you know, fire codes and building codes.
Yes,
And the
agreed.
fact that, you know, we're still fighting this battle. And I've been doing this a long time now, almost 20 years on the senior living side, dealing with AHJs who were still a strict interpretation of residential board and care occupancy, and you must have delayed egress, and you
Right.
know they don't care that a resident struggling with memory loss. They just want to make sure they can get out in case of a fire. And I mean, I have fought that. I fought it to the state fire marshal level here in Florida and got nowhere. Because you know no one wants to ever create any opening where they could be viewed as deviating from, you know, and creating risk. So, but it's a real problem. I mean, having
Definitely
delayed
agree.
egress in a memory care environment is just a recipe for disaster. You know, it just
Agreed.
is. And
Yeah.
yeah, every time they come out with a new version of the code and they're trying, you know, they move in very small increments. And, you know, when they came out with I-1 condition 2, it helped a little bit, but there's still a huge gap specifically on
Right.
the life safety code issue. And it's something we need to fix that problem. I don't know how to fix it, but I know that it is a big concern, and it's like every day another
yeah,
issue comes up.
I think, Charlie, you raise an excellent point that we hadn't talked about yet, and that is the code. And that's why the architect plays an extremely important role at the front. I mean, obviously throughout the whole life of the project, but as we're this particular topic, right?
mhm,
They should know the code. They should understand the space, the building type, the occupancy type of the space, and all of those play into defining what we can put for locking hardware,
Yeah.
right? Whether we can, and that's why it is a collaborative approach at the design stage to best answer for you as a developer and operator of communities how to achieve a secure, safe neighborhood and environment for your residents, right?
Yeah.
I mean, some of it plays into, just like you said, type 1, type 2, are you I2, combustible, non-combustible, single story, multi-story, and those are the parts and pieces that in the design stage, if you're in DDs, those are the types of conversations that are much easier to be had when we're just moving lines on on a paper,
Yeah.
right? And we say, how do we best solve this? Because that's what we try to do. We try to say to you as a developer and operator, like, hey, this is what you can do in the space. Is that okay? And you might be like, absolutely not. Like, no, I can't have anybody just walk out that door not knowing. Okay, well, we need to solve that problem now. Let's address it, as opposed to you're walking through the space when it's already constructed. You're like, what? Why can I? How can I just open this door? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. I should say that this is a frequent, I mean, these are frequent topics and that we all have gone through. So if those of you who are listening have questions right now, you don't have to wait till the end. Type in your questions in the Q&A you should see in
Sure.
the upper part of your screen, and we'll just jump in and answer them if we can.
Lower part, wherever your Q&A bar is, just
Where,
click on
yeah,
that and
wherever
submit it.
it is.
Yeah.
Charlie, do you have
Yes.
any other concerns that regarding
You know,
hardware that is just is
I worry about, I mean, I think we're all hopeful that technology will improve our ability to provide the services that we provide
Sure.
as we go forward. We're all hopeful of that, and we see that sometimes in new technologies. We're like, okay, I can actually see where this is going to help. Maybe it's helping in communication between associates, or maybe it's happening in the security side. But I worry that there's this huge push to have a greater reliance on technology, and that we're ever going to pull the people component out. And I think at the end of the day, this is about people. Hopefully we can make people better and more efficient at what they do through technology. But this idea that we're going to somehow care for the seniors of our country going forward, just leveraging technology, is one that just scares the heck out of me, because it just, if we can't get our door hardware right,
right.
think about all the other opportunities there are to really, screw things up, because we're depending too much on inanimate objects and expecting them to do what they're supposed to do without fail,
Right.
and they just don't. So that it's not something I can fix, but it does cause me to be somewhat of a late adopter of new technologies, because I'm always worried about,
You're leery.
they sell you what it's great about, but they don't tell you what the downfalls are, or the potential downfalls are. And usually that's when people learn the hard way, when something doesn't work the way it's supposed to.
Someone out there has to take the risk and see what the glitches are, I guess, right?
That's
I
right.
mean,
Yeah.
okay, we have
We've
some
got a ton.
questions.
Yeah, so I was just going to run through some of those, because I think certainly what Charlie was just running
Sure.
through relates to, and I can segue
Okay.
to some of them, right? But one of them was like, how do you negotiate the fact that if you have a standard, like you mentioned, Charlie, as an operator, and the GC cannot get competitive bids? They're stating that they find, even if they specify bid alternatives or equal, every sub comes back with a different, equivalent, and answering what is apples to apples is a challenge. Well, I can tell you, shameless plug for Tazergy, that's the low voltage consultant's job, is to help answer that. It's to help analyze that. It's to help equip an OAC team on answering whether the bid meets plans and specs or not.
Okay.
Right? I mean, so there's a product performance component, but there's also a people performance component, right? Is this subcontractor knowledgeable in the field, equipped? Have they done it before? That's an important piece in picking a subcontractor. Hopefully, I think that the attendee who pointed, if that answers your question, great. If you want a little bit more clarity, put a answer more. Or I don't know if either of you have anything to add to that.
Nope. Matt, go to the
Okay.
next question. So
There's the question about the main entrance usually has a vestibule, auto openers, where obviously an override to drop the mag lock, security, entry exits, where to start in coordination of this function. I've done a few webinars on this topic, and this is also part of the coordination effort. Low voltage consultants, we're not elevating spaces, right? Who elevates? The architect, right? The architect does your elevations, they do the so the architect has this elevation of the door, and then it's like, oh, hey, by the way, yeah, we need an automatic opener push button. Okay, just put it in there. Well, where's it going to go? Who's going to lead that? Oh, that's field coordination, right? And then you end up like, oh, let's stick it in the column at 6 foot because you've got a lick and stick stone base, to make it look pretty, or you've got your fire alarm control panel. Those are the types of coordination things that it's they should be picked up better in the submittal and shop drawing effort. But I think that I think that submittal and shop drawing efforts end up just being a routine humdrum, like, hey, subcontractor submits their submittal and shop, GC stamps it, submits it to the design team for review, and then it just kind of goes back. So it's not we just end up seeing that those aren't really coordinated. So I'd say just from a design side, we probably can come up with a better mousetrap for getting a better elevation, or at least landing some of these things in there if we collaborate more on that. That would be one thing. But Gail, excellent point. That is a challenging landscape. And then not only that, it's the programming of it, right? It's making sure that that automatic opener opens the door when the door's unlocked, and a whole slew of things, right? And that's a difficult thing to put in a set of design specs, right? Like we can't, it's not your plans and specs, your CD set is not a programming, right? It's not a how to build a building, first go buy a hammer, next go buy nails, no. Like,
and sometimes that shop drawing process is they need the response back in a day or less than 24 hours. So that's where coordination is lost too. It's so difficult.
Right.
I do want to say before you answer or address the other questions, Matt, and we want to keep going. I know it's only half hour, but you're going to see a survey pop up real quick to know what the topic should be on the next Tech Talk. So while Matt's reading these next questions, please jump in and respond on what you all think the next topic should be, and hit the submit. Okay, go ahead, Matt. Next question.
Okay. Shameless plug. We're probably just like door hardware coordination meetings can take 8 hours times 2 or 3 or 4. I'm sure this Tech Talk topic could resurface easily.
Well, I think there should be three more meetings on hardware myself, but anyway, go ahead.
We've really just been talking about perimeter. We haven't really even got into interior door locks and mechanical versus electronic, and online versus offline. And Charlie, from an operations standpoint, how you are managing those systems and what you're looking for, and how we can draw on that and make it better, Anyways, Ruth submitted, she wanted to talk about fail safe versus fail secure. Where a memory care unit failed safe at the end of the corridor because of power failure, it could be more harmful. So fail safe versus fail secure. Basically, if you're talking about electronic lock, mag lock, or electric strike would be a little bit different of a scenario, but let's just go with the mag lock. If it's going to fail secure, that means if it loss of power, that mag lock is going to remain engaged. Right? Fail safe means if it loses power, it is going to sit in an unlocked state. It is not going to be energized. Okay. So this is where, as consultants, we're sitting here and we want to represent the developer, the owner, their intent best to the AHJ and with the architect to help answer that. Listen, security, nobody wants anybody to be locked in a burning building.
Right.
We also don't want residents out in front of a moving car lost. Like, those are the things. So we're on the same team here to help achieve that. So, Ruth, the answer is obviously code has to be, it reigns, right? We need to make sure that the system is code compliant. But I think that there's some other things that can be put in place. If you talk about a battery, generator power, and how that plays into your locking system, is a conversation to be had with the AHJ and the architect and the operator, because at the end of the day, we don't want an unsecured door is not a safe door from an op standpoint, right? Unless there really is a fire, but that should be if your fire alarm is going off, that's a different story, right? So loss of power is another scenario to be run through in a coordination meeting. Agreed?
Yes. I love
Agreed.
Claire's comment here too.
Yes. If you have 100 problems with the building, 99 of them will be related to door hardware.
True.
Yeah.
Nice, Claire.
Yeah.
That's exactly
Yeah.
it.
Agreed. Whether the latching exit button is pushed and that's why the mag lock won't lock, you know.
No, that never
Um,
happens.
Oh, that's not once, right?
Yes.
Yes, Claire,
Should we?
absolutely truth
Mhm.
to that,
Yes.
sister. Yeah.
Yes.
And then Steve Ruiz, it's true. Every state has a different adoption of the IBC, or their version. If you want to say CBC, if you know that one, you know, it's in, and if you're going to be doing NFPA, and then again, your building type all plays into it, combustible versus non. And if you're going
Right.
multi-story or single story. So the simple answer is there isn't one answer,
Right.
right?
Right.
So it isn't going to change, but there are experts that are sitting there. There are people that know what they're talking about that can help navigate that ahead of the game. You'll have a couple door slabs, a couple locations that are going to be some thorns in the side. Absolutely. But navigating them with the team is a lot more manageable, I guess I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're a little over time, and like I said, we can keep talking about door hardware for many more sessions. We have your responses, though, so thank you all. And our next Tech Talk is January 18th, and we'll determine what the subject should be next. I mean, it'll be what we'll announce it on sagefederation.org, unless, I mean, we can see a clear winner. Do we see a clear winner, I think?
I
Charlie,
think
Matt?
e-call was right up there.
Nurse call?
Yeah, and we will be sending out an invitation to everyone for that Tech Talk in the next few days. So just keep an
Okay.
eye on your inbox and be sure to join us.
Wonderful. And a link to this recording, I think.
Yes, a link to this
Yes.
recording will be going out probably later today or tomorrow.
Wonderful. Well, again, thank you. I know we're a little over time, but seriously, this is so helpful, Matt. So thank you. Thank you. And Charlie, thank you for joining us from Florida.
Yeah, Charlie, thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Yes.
Thanks for letting me vent.
Oh, we have this is therapy session, Charlie. That's why
It
we have
is.
Jill has her therapy couch. Don't worry.
Yes, yes. On behalf of Sage and Tazergy, thank you all for joining us today. And we hope you've learned a little bit. See you next time.
Be well.
Next time, same bat channel.
Same bat channel.